Hey, good morning everyone, Trackman44 here. We got a little problem with my middle of my three Kubotas. I've got an old B7100, I bought it new in 1982, and I've got a B3030 that it was about 10 or 12 years old whenever I got it from an estate from a buddy of mine that passed away, and then of course the newer, bigger one. But I've finally come up with an issue with the B3030. This is the first time I've had any kind of a major issue at all. When I backed it in the shed the other day, it kind of faltered just a little bit, just as I'm backing into parking place, and just died, just shut off. It sputtered and died just like it's lost of fuel. So I thought, no big deal, I just change the fuel filter and go back about the business. So come out the next day, went ahead and blew out the air filter, it was a little bit dirty. I need to change it anyway. And went ahead and pulled the fuel filter out. Didn't have a replacement fuel filter. So I went ahead and cleaned that one out with carburetor cleaner and then blew air and everything so I could try to get it fired up, for the day while I was waiting on the new filters to come in. Couldn't get it to fire except for just for a few seconds, and then I noticed that after it ran for about 10 or 12 seconds it started sputtering a little bit, faltering, and then died once again. So I immediately went and looked at the sediment bowl, where the fuel filter sediment bowl, and I noticed that the top was down about a full inch. Well, I had filled the sediment bowl up before I sealed it off, so I knew that I'd used that much fuel before it died, which is about as much fuel as it would use in 15 seconds or so, you know what I mean? So today I'm going about the business of servicing this thing properly. We're going to see if we can get it started up again. But I think I'm going to have to bleed the injectors, and we'll talk about that in just a few minutes. But I've got everything cleaned up, and I've got the new filter in place. Let me show you that. Fuel filter's easy to spot, of course. This little guy right here, I've got it all sprayed down and cleaned up already. I've cleaned the inside of it and put a new filter in it. The way this thing works is whenever you unscrew it, there's like a little push-up valve that shuts off the incoming fuel supply right here. As you unscrew the element and drop it down, that valve goes ahead and springs closed, and then it doesn't do anything. It doesn't leak fluid unless there's something under that seat until you screw the replacement filter back on. Then it'll slowly start filling you. Actually, it should rapidly start filling your sediment bowl or your filter container, so that by the time you get it screwed in up to the top, it's actually spilling fuel out over the top of it. That way that minimizes injecting air into your fuel system to kind of make it falter or whatever. But at any rate, this guy here pumps fuel or allows the fuel to exit the top of the filter and comes up here to the inlet of the injection pump. So this one may have a common bleed right here in the middle. That looks like that's about a 14 millimeter nut right there. That could be a common bleed. If so, all you have to do will be to hold your fuel shut off in the closed position. This one here actually has electronic solenoid, but for the ones that don't have the electronic fuel shut off solenoid, there's a manual shut off that goes to a lever up on your dash on some of the other models, and this here is what will pull to shut the fluid off or the fuel off so you can kill your tractor. But at any rate, this one here has got a fuel solenoid on it, but to turn it over, you want to go ahead and close this guy right here so you can go ahead and bleed your injectors without it firing and running on one or two cylinders, you know what I mean. And I do not know if this is a single point fuel bleed or not. So I'm going to go ahead and crack that here real quick and see whenever I first start checking and see if it purges fuel there. If so, I might not have to bleed the individual injectors. If not, I'll have to bleed the individual injectors, and we'll go up and look at that too. So I went ahead and took a shoestring and tied off this shut off right here, this manual shut off. You can see the string right here. And it is definitely a 14, so I'm going to pop this open with a 14. It doesn't take much, half turn maybe. We're going to go ahead and crank it over. Now you hear that click? That's your fuel solenoid. So you can verify that the fuel solenoid is at least getting voltage. And you can actually feel it clunk, so you know it should be opening fine. So let's see if we're going to bleed anything here. Definitely bleeding. I still don't know if this is a single point bleed or not. If it doesn't start, we're going to try that right now. And if it doesn't, we'll go ahead and bleed the 4 individual injectors up on the top of the 4-cylinder engine. So now we're going to disconnect all this and loosen this up right here and let it go. Okay, that's back in the open position. The solenoid should do its trick. So let's see if it's getting the fuel. I got to preheat it because this thing's cold. It's probably about 48 degrees here this morning, I'm not sure. Should be enough of a preheat, that's about 30 seconds. Well, apparently that is a single point bleed right there on the side of this injector pump housing. So that's good, you know, we learned something today. But I'm going to go ahead and show you exactly how to bleed the individual injectors up here on top of the cylinder just for the heck of it. And yeah, I'm actually quite happy. Now, I normally don't start a tractor at half throttle or beyond like this guy here fired right up, but I did that simply because I was having that fuel issue and I wanted to make sure that it was going to supply a good amount of fuel through those ports, the ports and to the injectors themselves. Instead of having that at idle, I thought that, well, maybe that'll deliver a little more fuel. Don't know if that's true or not, but that's what I think. So anyway, hey, let's go ahead and take a look at the injectors up on top. Those will be 17 millimeter. And this happens to be a B3030, if I've not said that before. It's a B3030 four-cylinder. Hey, you know what I just remembered? I forgot a B2400 I've got also. It's a 99 B2400. So that makes a B7100, a B2400, the B3030, and then the MX5400. I don't know how I forgot that one. Well, I know why. That's entirely a different subject for an entirely different day. Okay, now all you really have to do is just follow your injector lines to your cylinders. You know, if you're not that familiar with diesels, say you're new to the compact tractor field. But at any rate, you can see here's your four individual injectors. There's number 4, number 3, number 2, and number 1. And you got the large nut up here on top. And that nut, you'll literally put your wrench on here and crack it back about a half to 3/4 turn. And go ahead and do just like I did before. Tie your manual shutoff to the closed position. And then go ahead and crank over the engine, and you will see as it's turned to fire, that cylinder will have a squirt of fluid come out of that nut. So you bleed 1, 2, 3, and 4 until you have good even flow out of all 4 nuts. Tighten them all down one at a time, of course, as you're bleeding them. And then you can go ahead and release your manual shutoff and go ahead and try to start it, and it should start just like it did a second ago. Now, while we're in here working on it today, I'm going to go ahead and change the oil. Change the oil filter and everything, you know, because I already got the new air filter in and a new fuel filter and everything. And this battery is, it's getting to be about 7 or 8 years old, and I noticed over the course of the summer it was getting a little bit weak. Well, going into this good cold winter, if you're going to have to use, you know, 15-20 seconds of the heaters, the glow coils, in order to get it fired up, this battery's probably not going to make it through the winter without being left on a battery tender every single day, you know, that you're not, it's not in use. But also at the same time, I see corrosion in these terminals. So I'm going to go ahead and give me some bacon powder, liquid, you know, just mix it in the water and pour all over that and get rid of all that oxidation, all that garbage that's built up on the terminal, and clean those off and everything, put that back on, change the oil, and do some other services. Like the grill's got some damage to it, and I actually had a brush guard on the front, and that brush guard, there was a big old stump rolled on me when I had the loader up in the air, and it kind of bent that grill guard, so I got to fix that up a little bit, and just a few other little odds and ends, and then we'll be back on the road. But there's really an interesting part. When I backed it into the shed, I had my forks, those homemade forks, which are about 40 inches long or whatever on it. So the loader's up in the air and it's dumped, and then the forks just prop down into the ground like that. Well, that's the position it was in when they needed to move it into here to get ready to work on this thing. So that was something in and of itself, getting that loader off where you're not able to use those stands in the down position, and with the dead tractor on top of it backed into the lean-to. It was tough. So I'll probably show you what I'd done in order to get that loader off, because we got to do the opposite to get it back on. But it should be easier going back on. So hey, you know what? If that happens to be the end of this one for now, I guess that's it. And this is TrackMan 44, and I'm out of here.